All right. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I am live now inside my Facebook group, and I am super excited to chat with Courtney tonight. She is waiting in the waiting room. I can see her. Um, just a few reminders, everybody. If you guys have questions, please post them in the comments, in the chats. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have. Or if you really just want to engage and if you just want to, share your experience with anything that we're going to be discussing, let us know, share that with us in the comments. It's always nice to get some feedback. Other than that, let us know when you're coming on live. In case you are watching this as a replay, hashtag replay in the comments. Same thing, you can always comment. You can always just, feel free to say anything that's on your heart and engage with us. I'm going to be bringing on Courtney now. I'm just going to be checking in my group if I'm live, if everything is going good, and then we are all set. Yes, so we are good to go. I'm going to be bringing her in. Hello, Courtney.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate that. It's such a great bonus for my community to have someone like you come on and speak about your expertise and everything that you do in your practice. So, my name is Cordula Marshall. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and I support autoimmune. Excuse me, I just have a little bit of a cold. I just have to have a sip of water. Hold on. Oh, when you get these tickles,
Yes.
when the cold is like you're almost through it all, but then you get this random tickle
Yeah.
and you
Not
can't
fun.
help it. That's what just happened. Yeah, so I support autoimmune women from a nutrition perspective, but also from a holistic perspective. So I do a lot of mindset work in my practice, and we talk a lot about habits and a lot about transformation and how that is so important if we want to create a life that we enjoy and that we really want to live with our
Mhm.
autoimmune. And so I posted a poll in my group and I asked, what are you guys interested in terms of learning more about? And alternative modalities was really high on the list. And so that is why I have you come on here tonight to chat about that a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I will pass it on to you and please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and what you do in your practice.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Maiorino. I am a coach. I kind of refer to myself as a mind body medicine coach, for lack of a better term. My things that I do and modalities that I use are kind of spread out. So, that's kind of what I use for an identifier. Um, I am in North Carolina right now, although I am originally from Portland, Maine, Northeast United States. In my own personal treatment and in my work, I do a lot of things. But first, I wanted to share how I got here. So, kind of like Cordula, and I'm sure all of you as well, I myself also live with an autoimmune disease. I live with Crohn's. It's a digestive disease, for those of you that don't know. And I navigated it normally in the beginning. And then I was also in college for health and wellness. So I was navigating it holistically as I was learning more. Along my journey, I've kind of gotten deeper into, like she said, alternative modalities. So energy work, breath work, like she said as well, mindset stuff is pretty big for me too. And I'm actually also right now and have been in the past few years working through more body-based healing. So some somatics, some breath work, some trauma resolution, things like that. I'm definitely learning more about that as well, not just for me, for my treatment, but for clients as well. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Yeah, that is a lot that you do. And it, like with so many of us who are actually stepped into coaching other people through these type of things, we have all our own health story behind it that really led us into this area because we probably didn't get the support from allopathic doctors or specialists or whatever it is.
Yep.
And I felt the same way. So I was pretty much lost in that respect, and was just told, you just take your thyroid medication, you'll be fine, and nothing was fine. And I still had all of these symptoms and everything. And so that is how I got into nutrition school and then did further education around nutrition because I knew that I had to nourish my body from a different standpoint. But in terms of the whole body mind aspect, which was completely new to me and which I tapped in holistic nutrition school, I tapped into that a little bit more. Um, Number one, I would like to ask you, do you come across a lot of women that are hesitant around including those modalities because they are receiving negative feedback from their environment in terms of that is just woo woo or you're weird or anything like that, that kind of like,
Yeah.
hinders them to step into that field?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'll speak from personal experience first. I was that woman, that person, that young adult. I didn't, I was introduced to alternative modalities a little bit in my college years. So pretty early on, I was exposed, but I didn't kind of run with it until years later and kind of really get immersed in it and make it not only applicable to my own treatment, but to like long term. With clients of mine, I honestly find, yes, they are skeptical and like not with good reason, but we're unfortunately so conditioned as patients within an allopathic model. If that's what we're used to seeing and who we're used to being around and the conversations that we're used to hearing, that's that's the conditioning and the perspective that we have. It's not necessarily wrong, it's just narrow, right?
Yeah.
Then they have a narrow perspective, they have a narrow thought process. If it can't be quantified or collected or measured, it's not important. And that's the total complete opposite perspective and opinion that I have. um, I find that my clients, they're not necessarily skeptical, they're kind of coming to me because they've tried everything else.
Yeah.
Diet is definitely important, 100%, but they've done some of the diet stuff. They're on extensive protocols and they're still not
Yeah.
seeing what they want to be seeing. And
Yeah.
so I would say I would say they're somewhat hesitant, but more so curious and willing, if
Yes.
I had to kind of identify it.
I love that. It's so interesting because I, for myself, I have done the nutrition part, right? So it took many years, but I got to a point where I really was able to restore my body from a nutrition perspective.
Mhm,
Um, However, I knew that there's so much more I can achieve
mhm,
in my health and the way I feel. And so I started just by myself to do the work, reach out to teachers and practitioners to
mhm,
guide me on that whole energetic level of
mhm.
healing, which is so fascinating. And it's absolutely mind boggling to see how much further you can get in terms of your health, how you feel about yourself, your mental health, as well as your physical health.
Yeah.
Um, it's mind-boggling. So I would really like to a bit, dig a little bit deeper into this because why is that? So, what would you say? Why is it important to focus on that work just as much?
Yeah. So I it's only strengthened with my work with clients and I've seen it in other people, but I've also used my own lived experience as a very, very, very thick um, kind of proof for this work. I well, I live with Crohn's disease. I was on a bunch of immunosuppressants and steroids for many years. I was also on infusion medications. If any of you know Remicade, I was on a Remicade infusion every 8 weeks for 2 years. They told me that I needed surgery. I picked Remicade instead. So I was that far off that I was going to go under under the knife for surgery. I was 2 years on infusions, and then with diet also, but with the help of this deeper work, I was able to come off all meds and have been in remission, symptom free, and on no meds since 2017. So
Yeah.
I really kind of lean on my lived experience, but I've also seen it with clients, with other people. I truly believe that these physiological, biological diagnoses and layers of symptoms that we experience, they have emotional and they have energetic roots to them. If you like rub your hands together, right? If you rub your hands together and you separate them, you feel the heat, you feel the energy, you can manipulate it. So there's even physical proof that that's the case. We know that to be true from actual science. And so by not including that in our treatment protocols, by not acknowledging that that's a piece of our humanness and our reality, by not addressing that and being honest about like, okay, right now even like integrative protocols are somewhat missing the mark right now. That's fine. Why not address that? We need to be honest about where we're finding gaps. But we are energetic beings, we are emotional beings, we all go through like traumatic experiences, for lack of a better word, and our bodies hold on to all of it, energy, emotions, and experiences, all of it. And we don't necessarily know that or fully feel that outwardly for years, but at some point, unfortunately, we probably will.
Yeah.
And it usually comes in the form of these undiagnosable, like untreatable, uncurable things that they just slap diagnoses on and put meds to, when in reality, we're not really even addressing the deeper root,
Right.
even deeper than nutrition and like deficiency like that.
Yeah.
We're not even looking at that. And I think that's the gap. I've like again, I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with clients. I have friends who have also done this type of work too, and they just see so much more of a deeper resolution,
Mm.
a deeper embodiment of who they are, a deeper connection to their bodies and their systems, more knowing of themselves. It's kind of a coming home process that we
Yes.
all don't really know that we need, but we do need.
Yeah. You have said that so beautifully. And there's two things I would actually like to talk a little about here is number one, IBS. So a lot of my clients are, or let's say the gut mind connection.
Mhm,
I mean, there's so much out there now that actually scientifically also shows on in studies and graphs and whatnot that
mhm,
the gut and the mind are communicating like on a regular basis. So there's
mhm,
the definite connection there
mhm,
that can cause so much issues. And like you said, in my work, in my line of work, where I mean, the first thing I do is I do focus on the nutrition. However, so often I run into roadblocks and say, listen, if you do not address your personal um, grief, your personal trauma, your personal stress levels, all of these things, your gut will never be able to completely balance, regardless of what we do
right.
on the nutrition side. It's just
1,000%.
that piece that needs to come in that you need to do some work around in
Mhm.
order to fully repair and heal your
Yes.
body.
Mhm.
It's just it's so crazy important that
Yep.
it's non-negotiable really that you have to do that work. Um, and a lot of people are initially not aware of it,
Yep.
right? And a lot that's not judging or anything. It's just like it's not really being talked about in our world,
Mhm.
unfortunately, right? It's just about cut out the gluten or cut out this and cut out that, and then you're good. But it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Mhm.
That's just my input on that. And then the question that I would have for you now is like what are some of the modalities that you can actually incorporate into that healing journey that'll have that impact on your body?
Yeah, so we were talking about IBS. So it's interesting with IBS. IBS and IBD are slightly different, but regardless, I would look into obviously anxiety and stress. And I'm sure people who live with that, they know that, but also looking into vagus nerve, vagal tone things, ways to strengthen your vagus nerve, because your vagus nerve runs from your brain all the way down and innervates in your abdomen, which obviously hits your colon, your small intestine, whatever. And so if that has low tone, it's not going to allow the nerves are not going to fire optimally, which means that digestion is going to be slow. Your bowel movements are not going to be great. You're not going to like optimally absorb nutrients. And practices for vagal tone are relatively, I guess, easy, you would say. Gargling water, stimulating your gag reflex, cold exposure. So like alternating warm and cold water, but then ending on a cold note, helps with your vagal tone. Singing, chanting, humming also can stimulate that. And breath work. Breath work can stimulate the vagal tone as well. We want to have a higher vagal tone. I guess it's kind of not the way our brain works, but the higher the vagal tone is, the more the nerves are firing optimally, and the less inflammation you're likely to have if your vagal tone's high. So breathwork would be obviously one of the modalities that I do. I'm certified in. I do it all the time. But it's one of the things that I love because it kind of covers all the bases. You can help your vagal tone. You can decrease stress and anxiety. You can help, release stuck energy and emotions. You can work through trauma. So it's kind of one of those things that can cover a lot of these deeper concerns within one modality, which is kind of nice. Other things that I love and some that I do, energy work. So Reiki in particular is what I'm certified in. That kind of energy work, it's nice because, again, you work on the energetic level, and within sessions, I not only do that, but I kind of sometimes get like downloads, I guess, for clients of things that can be supportive for them or can help them move forward, things like that. So it's not just an energy like work session. And then emotional freedom technique. If any of you have heard of tapping is super helpful for emotional release, working through trauma as well. I like breath work better for trauma work, but emotional freedom technique is wonderful too. And there's some other stuff that I'm working or learning about in like somatic areas of things, but I'm not super well versed yet, so I wouldn't speak to those. But definitely somatic based support as well. Learning to reconnect to the body, learning to create a felt sense of safety, learning to just like feel safe in our systems and really just come home, because a lot of us are not feeling safe to be here, and that's kind of why we disassociate, like I do sometimes or have in the past, and why we have symptoms like screaming at us all the time. So definitely some of those.
That is so interesting. Those three modalities I love. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about, for anyone who is interested in really, incorporating that for themselves, how much time should one spend? I guess consistency is key, like in with anything. How much time should one spend on, breath work, or, the tapping? How often should we incorporate that?
I guess it's kind of like everything, right? It's kind of bio individual to what your body will or will not tolerate. It's kind of like diet. So every person's nervous system, especially with autoimmune stuff, especially if you're in a flare or not, regardless, our systems are all different. Our systems are all going to respond to um, therapies in a different way. We all have a different size window of tolerance, is the phrase, and that is where we feel safe enough to like experience things. If something is outside our window of tolerance, say like a breathwork session that's gone too long, or a tapping session that's brought up something that's too hard, our systems are going to not feel safe and contract and have a problem. So we really want to try and work. It's like low and slow is mostly good
Yeah.
for our nervous systems most of the time. So for tapping, it's not something that I usually see people have a problem with, more on the breathwork side of things. So I would like try something and then give yourself some time in between trying it again to see how your system tolerates it, to see what comes up or doesn't come up, to see how you feel. Because especially with breath work, it can bring a lot of emotion. It can potentially bring up some traumatic stuff. And we don't want to push people's systems too far to the point where we are the ones causing a problem again by pushing them too much. So it's kind of like a try and see what happens kind of deal.
Interesting. So in terms of breath work, I love breath work. I've
Mhm,
been trying to do different ways of breathing.
mhm.
So just for example, from just like a personal story here is that I actually introduced my husband to Wim Hof breathing
Nice.
a few years ago.
Mhm.
He loves it. So it really, really works for him. It doesn't work so well for me, but it works for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so I am more of a person who I need the longer, the deeper
Yeah.
holding
Yep.
rather than the quick breathing and the
Mhm.
the, the fast going throughout the protocol. So it, what would you say around the breath work? Are there different ways of doing breath work, or is there some specific way that you would suggest across the board? Or tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there are some different from where I learned from, there are some different like patterns, I would say. So you said that your husband likes the faster pattern.
Yeah.
Um, by any chance, does he live with any autoimmune concern type of things?
No.
Okay, so it would kind of make sense potentially that you, as someone who has potentially seen, had like medical trauma maybe, or like other stuff, someone whose system holds more, to make sense that you don't necessarily love that pace. And so, for one, in a longer session, like I do with clients sometimes, I say you can drive the pattern, and that's the most important part is like you said, someone's system may need to be slower at first, but go for a longer period of time so their system gets used to what they're doing to feel comfortable enough to open up to accessing deeper things. So I learned two things. The deeper, longer sessions that I mostly do with clients are good for energy and emotional release, traumatic resolution, things like that. Deeper accessing are more intense usually. And then I learned what are called integrative patterns. So those can be used daily to relieve anxiety and stress, to increase energy. So there are kinds of different ways to do things depending on what your goal or intention is.
Super interesting. Super interesting. So, um, and so you work with clients online, like in a virtual setting. That's possible to do.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
before COVID, I was actually still in Maine, but I was doing stuff in person, and then COVID hit, and I moved. So I'm
Yeah.
mostly doing stuff via Zoom, and yeah, it
Yeah.
works well. I've done it. It's
Yeah.
not as it's not as like impactful for me as a facilitator necessarily because I love seeing and like feeling the energy that happens in an in-person session, especially if it's a group. But it's impactful for clients nonetheless, even if it's via Zoom.
So, can I ask you a little bit more about the Reiki?
Of course.
Because that is something I'm personally interested in, and I've
Mhm.
been a little bit hesitant, not that I don't believe in it,
Yeah.
but in in me hesitant of maybe things that might be coming up for me.
Okay.
So, Reiki. So
Mhm.
this is something that it is it like an energy exchange between you and the client? How does it work?
So it's a Japanese modality, and the premise of it is there's seven energy centers. If you've heard of chakras, that's kind of the structure of it. They align along your spine. So they start your tailbone. That's your root. They go up to like your sexual organs, your sacral chakra. Then your abdomen is your solar plexus. Then you go to your heart, and then you go to your throat, and then your third eye and your crown. It kind of comes up to your head. Um, it's not necessarily an energy exchange. It's kind of like the practitioner who's attuned to the lineage of Reiki kind of channels universal life force energy for the client to help um, shift patterns that they feel in this person's energy field. It can be hands on or hands off, kind of hovering over the client if in person. So it just kind of depends on what the comfort level is there. but I also have done distance as well, and it's again just as powerful. But it's not necessarily an exchange of energy. We really wouldn't want that, especially if
Mm,
the client is going through something or has
yeah.
something going on that's super intense. That's kind of one of the things that's interesting about both facilitating breath work and being a Reiki practitioner is like you have to really be solid in holding your energy and like really having a soft field to help facilitate, but also stand strong on your boundaries energetically because I'm also someone who lives with a chronic illness and I don't really want to be taking on anything anyone else has going on. So it's more of the practitioner is more of a channel for universal life force energy to help ease and break up blocks in the person's energetic field through the hands.
Okay. So what can the client expect from that experience?
Yeah, so, if it's in person, you'll probably feel I mean, if it's hands-on, you'll feel that. If it's, like, not if it's hands-off or if it's distance, you might feel certain things in certain areas. So when I do a distance session, which is pretty much what I'm doing now, I have a set of, like, chakra stones that I work with as a visual for myself, and then I will kind of just, like, intuitively figure out combined with the person's intention that they send me prior to, like where to start. And then I kind of just do the work on that spot, and they might feel heat, they might not feel heat. I've had clients who have had like memories or emotion pop up, depending on where I am on their energy field. Say over the heart if it's grief, or anger if it's like a root chakra thing. I've also had clients again, like have memories or if they hear songs, or it doesn't necessarily happen that way, but if someone is comes really open to the experience, then stuff like that can happen. Um, Usually people just feel very relaxed. They feel very peaceful. They may feel resolution of certain physical pain points if they have any at time of session. Um, and then at the end of the session, I'll ask my client, okay, like what came through for you? And then they can share with me whatever came through if they want to. And then usually what I'll do, because I'm writing notes, kind of like I'm trying to write notes and facilitate at the same time, just because in an energy work session, stuff kind of comes through for me. And I don't really want to not share it if it's coming through. So I'll just jot some notes down as I'm doing the session. And then after they share, I asked them, okay, some stuff came through for me. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but would you like me to share? And I share it came through for me, for them. And that's
Nice.
kind of how it works.
Awesome. Well, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Would you say that so number one, another question that I would have is I myself have Hashimoto's, right?
Mhm.
So the thyroid, and I learned a lot about the chakra, the throat chakra, and all of
Mhm.
these type of things, which is very much connected to Hashimoto's
Mhm.
thyroiditis. And a lot of my women in my group actually do have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Is there anything that you can share around that from your perspective around energy or breathwork healing to support the thyroid?
Yeah. So breath work. Well, okay. So emotional breath work type things. Um, I would say don't be afraid to like express feelings, anger, rage, things like that come out of the throat. Um, if anyone is familiar with breath work or things of that nature, scream breathing is really helpful. All you do is inhale really deeply into your belly, and then on the exhale, you literally just scream as loud as you can.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
you have to obviously have the space and the capacity
Yeah.
nearby to do that, but it's super powerful. It's really just allows, and honestly, screaming is really good for your vagal tone too. So it can be a dual support.
Yeah.
But being able to just express that, especially when you're feeling it, like especially when you're feeling stressed out, to be able to give yourself the space to literally be like, okay, I'm feeling this, and I'm going to allow myself to actually like let it go in a safe way. That's really, really something that comes through in this area. again, speaking your truth, allowing yourself to be open about what you believe in and speaking that up, especially right now, if you have things that you haven't said or need to be said, or you've been kind of keeping your mouth shut on certain things, but you really don't want to, I would invite you to share if you're feeling. It's an interesting thing because with the speaking truth thing, yes, it's an energetic thing that probably needs to happen, but it's also a safety nervous system thing. Like if you feel safe enough to do that. So it's with that, if you're having the duality of those things happen, my suggestion would be to take it slow. Do it once, see how you respond. Figure out that you're safe and you can actually express yourself and then move forward again. It's kind of always a dual dance between energetic and nervous system,
Right.
because our nervous system is impacting so much of what we
Mhm.
do. And then with energy work, the color of that area is blue. So if people are drawn to that color, or you have a lot of that color in your space, or you don't, and maybe you should, things like that. What else? I would say that's what comes to mind.
That's perfect. That is perfect. That gives us a lot to work with and just brainstorm and really just, connect with and
Mhm.
start to incorporate. That's great.
Yeah.
So, if people are interested in, finding out more about this kind of work,
Mhm.
where would people be able to find you and reach out?
Yeah, so Instagram is kind of where I hang out the most. And if you want to drop my handle in your group when you have time, you can.
Yep,
I can
we'll do.
also share it here, but sharing it vocally is probably not going to be helpful
Yep.
because my last name is kind of crazy. So,
How do
uh,
you pronounce it, anyways?
Maiorino.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, so it just has a lot of vowels. But yeah, she can share my handle with you guys, and if you have any questions,
Yep.
you know are interested in things, just reach out and let me know and we can chat.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, well, thank you. That was amazing. You
You're
shared a lot
welcome.
of great information with us to kind of like just really, get our feelers out there and really try to, you know, get to the next level
Yep.
and always moving for always evolving, right? Because
Mhm.
we're always evolving. It's never it's you never reach the goal
Right.
anyways, and there's always room for growth regardless.
Right.
And really, those modalities might be extremely helpful. Yeah, thank you. Fantastic information I'll get here in the chat. So, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will drop the handle, IG handle in the group.
Awesome.
And yeah, let's keep in touch. And I hope
Yes.
you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, guys. Have a
Okay,
good night.
you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.